Welcome, welcome. Who needs a drink on a Friday night? Guys, we're going to get straight in on this stuff because, hey, it's been quite a week, quite an eventful week in the news. If you came here to watch some watch content, you're not going to get a whole lot, unfortunately, tonight because I do like to talk about current events. Hey, I talk about history, I talk about culture, I talk about strange arches rebuilt by Mussolini in Verona, blah 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 blah. I cover a lot of ground, and I do like to talk about what's going on in the news. I think it's remiss of many influencers and so on out there who just completely ignore the whole world could be falling down around them, and they'll be there going, "Here's the new Tudor watch." I just think that's weird. I can't do it. If you do that, and that's your way of dealing with things, maybe you're a better man than I. But I just feel like talking about stuff that's going on out in the world. So, of course, we have the shit going on in Iran. We have the falling of Dubai. At least that's the way I'm seeing it. And we have Christy Noem, who just got dumped yesterday by her lover. And as quite often happens, I bring on a good friend of mine who is anonymous on the show. We call him John, but he works for the US government and he is the voice of reason when it comes to these things in many cases. And I like to bounce ideas off him. He's very popular with you guys. You guys love him. John's already in the room. Hey, man.
Hey, I'm glad to hear that everybody loves me because I always get the feeling that I'm oversaturating your channel every time I come on, no matter how much time is between appearances. So I'm glad to hear that
Dude,
it's
they'd
not the
love
case.
they'd love if it was just your channel. I think half the audience are like, they're probably already rooting for you as well. They're probably like, I
That's
can't wait.
very
I can't wait till John hands
that's
Oisin his ass tonight and
that's
shows
very
him.
nice of you to say, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. Who's in the room? Loves auto detail. Thank you. First drink on me, brother. $20. Also a member of the channel. Great to see you in the room. Thank you, man. That was a preemptive uh, super chat. Should
Those
I
are
be
always
using
nice.
terminology like preemptive? Just to keep things slightly light for a moment. What am I wearing tonight? I'm wearing my Omega Seamaster 300M, the original and the best. The watch that started it all. Why am I wearing this tonight? Well, if you look very carefully, I have a very special badge on my lapel here. Do you see what it says? This is a collector's item, guys. This comes from Livigno, the Winter Olympics, because my daughter is right here. She's actually in the room on the other side of the room doing her research on a camera she has to use tomorrow in Venice. But she was shooting the Winter Olympics all last month. She spent her whole time there above Milan, up in the mountains, and she brought me a gift of a beautiful Omega little brooch, little gorgeous little thing. I stuck it on there, and I figured I would wear my Omega, so that was fun. She was telling me all about her adventures up there and how the whole thing was. It was quite fascinating. But unfortunately, the show is going to be about heavier things. There were three. First of all, I have to tell you, John, that I don't know how much I can reveal here, but I assume you're slightly relieved that a certain person was handed their papers and had
Yeah.
to clear off their desk, put everything in a big paper box, and leave the building
Yeah.
yesterday.
The
Is that how
joke
you're
was
feeling?
well, our running joke is do Cash Patel next. That's
Right.
been that's been the rallying cry. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm always relieved when people that have no business doing certain things are either quietly or very publicly escorted out of the building. So no, that's from my friends in DHS that I've spoken to. They're very much relieved. It's been kind of an ongoing thing for anybody that's interacted with her. I think on a personal level, obviously, She's a politician, so she was probably very pleasant, but the original thought was that she would just kind of stay out of the way and stay away from the cameras and behind the scenes and just be a good bureaucrat. And that's
Uh-huh.
sort of where it started. She did initially have that MO of just going around different areas and asking what was needed and more or less, giving the guys in the field what they needed. But eventually, especially with the more public enforcement operations in Minneapolis, she found her way in front of the camera and was obviously unprepared and clearly out of her depth. So I
Did
think
you ever meet her?
I never met her. No, I've never met her, never spoke to her personally, but I know several people who have met her. And while again, they say the same things. She's a very nice lady in person, obviously limited interactions, but I
Yeah.
don't think anyone was under the impression that she had the experience or the competency level to do the job that she was doing. And that's just a matter of, just observation. That's not an insult.
What about a replacement? It turns out because I did a live stream yesterday from the Irish pub, and the news came in during my stream. I didn't believe it. I thought people were
Yeah.
pulling my tail.
I saw you reacting to that live. It was it's pretty
Yeah, I'm like,
entertaining.
oh my god, say it's true, say it's true. Um, and at first I did not recognize the name. Remind me of his name again. What is his fucking name anyway? He has three names.
Yeah, it's
Wayne,
like
Wayne, Wayne Frank
Mark
John
Mark
Josh.
Wayne Millie, I believe is
Yeah.
yeah. And to be
Um,
clear, he's just nominated right now. He would have to go through full Senate confirmation to
mhm,
actually get the posting. So he's not technically in charge right now of
mhm.
anything. He has just been nominated.
He's
So
been nominated.
there's still a
Well,
Senate approval
I
process.
didn't I didn't know that. I didn't recognize the name, but then when I saw clips this morning all over social media, I was like, "Oh, that guy. The
Yeah.
guy who tried to get up and start a fight in Congress."
Yes. That's
Yes.
that is his more notable appearance. He's I believe he's only a first term senator, but I think he was in Congress before. Um, I don't think he has any law enforcement experience. I don't think he has any military experience. As far as I know, I believe he only has an associate's degree.
Uh-huh.
Somebody more than, you know, if anyone's willing to fact check me on that. So I think his qualifications essentially at this point are that he's a loyalist and a Trump supporter,
Right.
which technically is more or less what you need in those cabinet positions. So we'll see. I don't want to disparage the guy before he's had an opportunity to actually do his job, because with these types of assignments, there's two possibilities. One is typically the person just sort of realizes the job they're undertaking is way above their experience and knowledge levels, and they
Uh-huh.
sort of defer to the experts that are actually at the operational level, and they are just a good figurehead. The other option is kind of what you see where they try to do too much and they try to hit the ground running and start making changes and start kind of inserting themselves, like the Cash Patels, where the
Mhm.
Pete Hegseths, where they're trying to kind of grow into the role.
Mhm.
And no one really buys that. There's a lack of authenticity there because everybody knows their qualifications aren't there. So hopefully he is the former, where he just kind of slowly gets into the role and does a good job by just kind of staying out of the way. But I guess time will tell.
Yeah. That's the thing. I didn't want to ruin anyone's moment, because so many people were celebrating that Chrissy Noem was out because she was so horrible. It was such a mockery, I think, of the whole department.
Yeah.
Uh, you
Well,
know what I mean?
DHS is a huge organization, and I think a lot of people think that DHS has been around for a while. DHS has only been online since 2003,
Right.
and
It was a response
DHS was
after.
yeah, it was 9/11 response,
Yeah.
and the reason that that department came online was because there were so many agencies that didn't communicate well with each other that were part of different organizations. You had Immigration Naturalization Service that was, part of Department of Justice. You had Customs Service, which was Treasury. And so, like the hijackers that came into the US on actual valid US visas, DOJ wasn't notified because Customs didn't tell them because they didn't communicate well. So, all of these kind of this behemoth of the federal government wasn't communicating well with itself. And the idea was to put TSA and Border Patrol, Customs, Secret Service kind of all into one umbrella agency and kind of hope that that would rectify those things. But there's a lot to that type of job. And I don't know if it's really there's really no level of expertise in any particular discipline that would make you a good head of that department because there's so many agencies within it. It's not like being in charge of, the CIA or the Department of Justice, where it's if you were a prosecutor or an FBI agent, you more or less have the experience. So it's a job for a generalist and kind of a person who can just trust the people underneath him without getting too political and without inserting himself.
Let's have a look at a couple of clips for levity's sake here on that are going around Instagram. Let me know if you cannot hear it.
Congratulate former Homeland Security Secretary on her appointment to be the shield of the Americas, which I'm pretty sure the president came up with when he watched the last Avengers movie. So, we'll find out what that entails. But look, she will go down as the worst Secretary of Homeland Security since the creation of it after 9/11. I mean, she literally took the president's core issue on immigration, which he was polling at 60% in September, and got that down to 39%. She exceeded all expectations on doing that by, having 2 Americans shot, one in the face and one in the back under her leadership. They had to bring in Tom Homan and leave Minnesota as a result of her actions. First,
Looking crazy.
Yeah.
What is it? The Shield of Americas? What is this? Did they just come up with this nonsense?
Yeah,
What
it
is this?
sounds to me that sounds like a made up job in a made up organization. Sounds like something you tell your kids that they're going to be a part of to make them feel like they're part of the adult discussion, like the kids
Yeah, it's
table
the
at Thanksgiving.
it's the Shield of the
The
Americas,
shields of the America.
Western Division.
Yeah,
I
Western
think
Hemisphere.
on the Daily Show they were saying it's things are bad when you're put into a department that was invented 6 minutes ago and named using fridge magnets.
Yeah,
The
that's
birds on your fridge or
it
something. But this
sounds
is their way. I assume this is their way of kind of stepping her down without complete
yeah.
disgrace.
It's
Like
what
just
they
move her over to some made up fucking thing. They gently,
yeah.
and
They
then
call it a
eventually,
soft landing.
right, right.
Yeah, they call it a soft landing. I think that's exactly what this is. She's not going to have any serious role, and
Mm,
no matter how you look at it, it's a downgrade. You don't go from leading DHS to the only next level up would be if you're being moved up to a national security advisor position. But anything that's not even a real department would be kind of made up. So no, this is definitely a demotion. It's a PR stunt. She's not going to have any real authority over anything, especially if she's working with Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth. I think this is a 6-month thing, a 3-month thing, and then she'll eventually exit stage left and probably
yeah.
run for reelection or something like that. This is just a PR stunt.
Yeah, what ticked off Trump in the end? It was that she lied about the funding for her little promo videos there, her on horseback with a fucking with a cowboy
There's
hat on or whatever.
so as far as I know, this is a
Like
little more
it wasn't
complicated.
the affair. It wasn't the affair in the
It
plane.
wasn't the affair. I think that would have got her promoted. The affair
Right.
would have been a feather
Yeah.
in her cap. I think Trump would
Right.
have appreciated
Trump
that.
would have went, wow,
Yeah.
that's how you
Um,
travel between
I,
appointments.
I I think it's a combination of things. There's a great book out there. It's by a guy named Robert Greene, and it's called The 48 Laws of Power. And the first law is never outshine the master. And so it's
Right.
kind of this dynamic about, and it applies to business, it applies to pretty much everything. But I think the first thing that I would look at is the image and the news coverage. I think Trump is very conscious of anybody that gets more media attention than him in any sort of sense, especially people in his own cabinet and especially subordinates. I think that is kind of the kiss of death for you if that starts to happen. for any reason. Number two, I think it's definitely the controversy and controversies over the immigration enforcement. I personally don't think Trump wanted American citizens to be killed, even if it was through what they consider lawful uses of force, which are obviously debatable at this point. At
Yeah.
best, they were within the scope of legal authority, but certainly not, ethically or morally justified. And
Mhm.
from my perspective, not even tactically justified. There would have been other ways to handle those situations without resorting to deadly force. So
Yeah.
that controversy compounded the optics around immigration enforcement, and you even started to see people within the MAGA base sort of start to lose support for that entire thing. So
Mhm.
that hurt his poll numbers, which I think he again shifts blame when things don't go his way. He doesn't say I've messed up and this was my idea. The buck stops with me. He
Yes.
shifts blame laterally and down.
Mhm.
So the third thing was, I think, the controversial testimony. I think she made the administration look bad in front of her recent hearings.
Well,
She
she
didn't do
said, well,
herself any favors.
I mean, recent, just the other day, she said that this commercial was given the go ahead by Trump,
Yeah,
and it
and
cost
Trump didn't,
millions.
and Trump specifically said that that wasn't true. So
Yeah. Can
she
you hear
kind of
that?
publicly threw him under the
If
bus.
you don't, we will find you and we will deport you.
At the cost of $220 million, the commercials began airing last year, the biggest contract going to a company run by the husband of Noem's former spokesperson.
I did not have anything to do with picking those contractors.
Noem was asked about the pricey ads.
Correct.
the
We
president
worked
know
with
you were going to do
OMB.
this?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
Senator Kennedy says the president called him after the hearing, insisting he knew nothing about it.
And he was mad as a murder hornet. Her version of the truth and the president's version of the truth are decidedly different.
Noem's
Yeah.
departure was seemingly welcomed on both sides of the aisle.
Good riddance. She should be held to account for the corruption that she has shown.
Several weeks ago, we said either Kristi Noem is fired or she's going to be impeached.
Noem's replacement, Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullen, a former businessman
Mullen.
and mixed martial artist.
I've got to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting the call today.
Why does everybody say why do they lean into the mixed martial art? What is our business like? What he does at home? Like,
Well,
he's
that
into
tells you-
karate. Like, who
that
cares?
tells you the depth of his resume.
Right? Yeah.
That's
If he played piano, they'd call him a pianist and mixed
yeah.
martial artist.
That's a pretty shallow resume. If you look at his Wikipedia page, you're kind of like, wait, how is this guy qualified to run the department?
Ugh.
Yeah, so I think all those controversies kind of compounded. Her contradicting Trump publicly probably didn't look good either.
Mhm.
Her trying to buy that ridiculous plane for DHS. DHS already has several aircraft, including a Gulfstream that's
Uh-huh.
used just like the Bureau has one, just like the agency has multiple. So there's a lot of stuff that she was doing that had a lot of people scratching their heads. And I think kind of tarnishing the image of the immigration enforcement side of it definitely didn't help. So a guy like Tom Holman, like him, don't like him, whatever. At a minimum, what you can't say about him is that he's incompetent. You may disagree with him, you may not like his presentation or his personality, but he's been in law enforcement and immigration enforcement for 30, 40 years. So he knows what he's doing and he knows what he's talking about. And that lack of deferment to those types of experts and kind of keeping your exposure minimal is what some of these cabinet members I don't think are learning. Rubio, I think, is one of the guys that actually does this fairly well. He kind of stays out of the limelight. He inserts himself where he needs to be inserted and then steps out pretty quickly. He's not a very vocal cabinet member, but Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, and Kash Patel are definitely the ones that are kind of the lightning rods. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kash is next.
Yeah, God, well, that would be great. But again, my concern, as I voiced even last night, while the fallout was happening in real time, was who's this new guy? Of course, then I saw this clip and I was like, that guy.
Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. You want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Is that your
All right.
solution, every problem?
No, sit down.
No, you're a clown.
Sit down.
Look at you.
You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay. Sit down, please.
Fucking.
I mean, this is what our
Bernie.
politics. Yeah. This is where our
Bernie, you're
politics
a-
have devolved to. You're a
Yeah.
United States Senator. Sit down.
Remind him who he was.
Embarrassing.
You're not in a fucking bar.
Well,
Like,
and it's strange that people think that those types of displays come across as strength.
Yeah, that's like I'm the tough guy.
All that signals is incompetence, arrogance, stupidity, and ego, and a lot of insecurity. That's all that demonstrates. That doesn't demonstrate you being a tough guy, you know. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, I wonder what this guy's background is, you know, because he's trying to look the part. He's trying to look like that former special forces, former, you know, maybe law enforcement type of dude. And that's why I was like, oh, maybe he was something before, but based on his actions, I would have been surprised. And then I obviously Googled him, and turns out, yeah, he doesn't have much in terms of claim to fame. But we'll see. You know, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. He might be an asshole, but you know, yeah.
Look at Bernie.
I mean, it's
Come
like
on,
a
boys.
it's like a teacher trying to break up a fight between two kids. You know, two football
Exactly
players.
what it's like.
Pathetic. Yeah, this is our government.
Mother of God. But I suppose we should just savor the moment that Christy Noem is out. You know, if I was less than qualified for a position that's so important, so paramount to the government and so on, I would keep my head low. You know, I'd be like, shit, man, I'd have imposter syndrome. I'd be like, how the fuck did I get here? Shit, I better just like keep my head low, say yay and nay to whoever I think needs to be to hear that, and just get on with stuff, and then run
Yeah.
home and tell my wife, oh my God, I got away with it another day. It's amazing to me that people like Kash Patel and Chrissy Nolan, they go out, you know, all brazen. She's like, yeah, I'm going to wear a cowboy hat. I'm going to get up there and say that Renee Good was a domestic terrorist, even though it's 5 minutes after she was shot in the face. I'm going to
Yeah.
go on there with a fucking cowboy hat on. I'm not even going to take my hat off for respect.
And that was
for
another
the
thing.
dead.
She threw the agents on she actually threw the agents under the bus in the testimony. She made the claim that the agents relayed that information to her from the shooting of Alex
Oh.
Preddy, which
Oh.
is categorically false, and it's also impossible because that is not even how the reporting requirements work during a lethal altercation. Those agents are immediately sequestered, their weapons are taken. They're not even allowed to provide a statement to their own agency for 72 hours because during a lethal altercation, you're given kind of a 72-hour cooldown period because you have to actually process the information of what just happened. You can't immediately give a statement. So there are certain questions that you answer within the immediate shooting. But as far as laying out the entire, you know, scenario, that does not happen. So the people that were involved in that shooting would not have been immediately debriefed, nor would that information be immediately relayed to the head of the department. There's about at least 9 reporting layers between those agents and Christy Noem. And those reporting layers are put through very systematic processes where everything that's said and provided in memo format is cataloged as part of the case file. So the most information she would have gotten was that there was a shooting. She would have probably received whatever the news was covering, the situation, the identity of the person who was shot, some of the circumstances. But the idea that she would immediately have the ground facts is impossible because even the supervisors of those agents and the deciding officials who investigate those shootings would not have that information yet. So the idea that she would have it before the people who actually conduct the what they call critical incident response team, those guys aren't even there yet. They show up and they conduct the investigation. They come up with a preliminary report that then gets reviewed. I mean, this takes months for actually to either clear the agents of any wrongdoing or determine that they were in the wrong and subsequently either prosecute them or at least discipline them internally. So that's why when you see professionals go on TV and they say, this is an ongoing investigation. We are aware of it. We will investigate. Some of that is boilerplate kind of repetitive rhetoric, but some of that is, or at least 50% of that, is based on the fact that they genuinely don't know.
Yeah. Listen, it's long and laborious process.
Yeah.
Discovering what actually happened, what were the motives, going through all the film, all the info, everybody's testimony before you can actually stand up there on a podium and give some sort of assessment. Your job is to say,
Yeah.
we don't know yet. That's what your
And
job
even
is.
in the most obvious situations, like the Renee Good shooting, from all the footage that came out, it was pretty clear right off the bat that, again, me watching that, and probably most people with any real experience watching that would say that that was not a good shooting, and pun not intended.
No.
But even if it's very clear what happened, even if you see a footage of somebody raising a pistol at a police officer and the police officer shoots him, even in those situations, they still conduct a very thorough, very full
Sure.
investigation before they go out and
Sure,
say
this is not a
anything.
circus. This is
So
not a circus. I mean,
yeah,
listen, there's a trope going around the planet Earth that America is just a bunch of clowns and not serious people and jokers. And this is playing into in fact, extremely serious people, and the law is extremely serious. And this is making a mockery of it. That's why I'm incensed. I'm bloody incensed by this stuff. There's a picture, by the way, that hopefully will just fade away into our memories with the Department of Homeland Security symbol, emblem in front of her and her fucking hat. I mean, listen, I know a cowboy hat's like a staple there in the state.
yeah, I think she's
Certainly
in Texas.
in Texas and so on. But
And the guy
man,
behind her is the chief of the Border Patrol wearing a Rolex.
what's he got? He looks like a
It
sea
looks like a
dweller.
sub or a sea dweller. I think it's an older sea dweller. I've seen other
I think
pictures.
it's
with him.
yeah, it looks like a S 4000, the
Yeah,
4K,
yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah, because it's a little chunky looking. Yeah, that's a good watch for a guy like
That's
that.
a great watch for
We can't
Chief.
see if she
Chief.
has her
Oh, I'm
gold
sure she does.
Daytona on.
I'm sure she's rocking it. Yeah, Chief Banks.
Is that his name?
Yeah, I forget his first name, but yeah, last name is Banks.
Okay.
Not a bad guy, actually, from what I've heard.
Okay. Anyway, good riddance to her.
Yeah, Christy
again,
Noem's out.
she's out, and that embarrassing moment there with the cosplaying and the nonsense is just hopefully behind us. This next guy, we'll see what happens.
Well,
It's
hopefully
not
he
very
learns some
promising.
lesson.
Yeah, maybe perhaps he'll look at what she
Yeah.
did and perhaps learn something from it. But I don't hold out much hope if he's ready to stand up right next to old Bernie there, the school teacher, ready to get it on. Like, was the guy they were going to duke it out in Congress? Is that really where we are?
Yeah, he's gonna fight a witness. I don't even remember what that hearing was about, but I think he was reading like text messages or tweets or something from the guy and reacting to them in real life. It was just a bizarre episode there.
Again, I was like, who is this guy? And then when I saw this, I was like, I remember this dude. What the hell? I don't know who that witness was. He's got a 50 fathoms on. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it's so that's funny. Like
We're
that's
spotting the
what I
watches
notice
now. We're
now.
spotting the
Yeah,
watches. That's
that's all I
we've got
look at now. Like I look at everybody's watches now. I'm completely desensitized to whatever the scenario is now. I just look at the I pause it and I try to figure out what the watch is.
This guy came in there with
Priorities, man.
a
Priorities.
time and a place, and he's like, "This is a time and a no. This is not a time and a place."
Those two poor women behind him are just like horrified.
Yeah,
Like
this is how I'll
embarrassed.
go down in history. This
They're
is how my
embarrassed to
Facebook
be in
will-
the same room and in the same shot as him.
Yeah, their kids are at home going, "Mommy, I saw you on TV." Yeah, behind the
Yeah.
lunatic who tried
Who
to
was
start
that?
a
Who was
bar
that
fight.
scary man that was going to fight
Yeah.
that guy? Oh, that's my boss, honey.
Let's take a second to look at the comments. Gabri comes in. with 20 euros. Iran. Yeah, we'll get to that in just a moment, Gabri. We're just starting out with the Christy Noem thing. We have three main topics to talk about. We might talk about watches sporadically in between, as we've already done, for a little levity. But unfortunately, this is going to be kind of a heavy show, I think. Yes, and we're going to talk about what we've been talking about, and then also Iran, and then Dubai as well. I find that very, very interesting. A pleasing thank you, 999. Thank you so much. John Ross happened to be in Tahoe and drove off after Renee's murder. Pretty's killers were still on the job days after, according to Bovino. John's still pretending procedural norms exist. That's
Well,
dig at you, man.
Yeah, let me answer that. So first of all, yes, the fact that Agent Ross left the scene is a problem. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know. There are procedures. If the scene becomes too dangerous for the agents to stay, they are allowed to leave. I don't know the procedures for ICE. They may have different procedures when it comes to a shooting. The agents that were quote unquote on the job several days later, that's because they don't get fired and they do not get placed on administrative leave necessarily. The cooling off period and the 72-hour cooling off period means that they cannot be interviewed for 72 hours by internal affairs or any other law enforcement entity until they've had time to process the event. There's this kind of Hollywood misnomer that when you're in a shooting, there's that scene in the police station where the chief takes your gun and badge and tells you to go home. That's not how it works in real life. You don't lose your gun. You don't get sent home on administrative leave. There's an investigation. You're still allowed to work. You're still allowed to be on duty. So if the initial investigation cleared them of any wrongdoing based on the preliminary fact finding, they would not be disciplined in any way. Now, if the initial investigation showed that there was something amiss in the Preddy shooting, then they would be put on administrative leave pending internal discipline. And then if that internal discipline turned out to go against them in that process, then there's potential for criminal charges. So there's a lot more to it than that. So the fact that they were quote unquote back on the street within days doesn't mean that procedures weren't followed. Procedures were still followed. It's just that under these circumstances, according to what DHS determined to be a legitimate use of force, they weren't disciplined. They may still face criminal charges because this is what I want to remind people: administrations change. And there's no statute of limitations on murder or homicide or negligent homicide. So if the next administration comes in and there's a democratically elected president who's a Democrat and wants to go back and indict people, they can still do that. So the agents that were involved in the Alex Preddy shooting can still be indicted and charged with whatever, negligent homicide, depraved indifference, et cetera, et cetera. There's various charges. And same goes for the ICE officer who shot Renee Good. They could still be charged with a crime under a different administration. So they're not completely in the clear.
Mr. Baggas, $5. I don't really get the feeling that any of the policies and procedures were followed in these incidents. How about the reduced training program? Yeah, because they're trying to recruit as many as possible.
Yeah. So the first part of that, the procedures are not dictated at the departmental level. DHS has policies in place that are followed. And again, this isn't Christy Noem or the Department of Homeland Security secretary going out and doing the investigations. This would be akin to saying that, Rolex is controlling inventory at the ADs. They're very detached from one another. So
that's true.
In the same scenario that your AD is not obliged to give you a watch because you think you deserve the watch, or because Rolex, you contacted somebody in Switzerland and they told you that watch is currently still in production. This is the same thing. Within DHS, within any organization, you have layers of management, you have layers of procedural processes that are in place through policy. And those people don't report to anyone other than the next layer up. They're not reporting to DHS secretary or the president. So they're going to follow procedure, whatever the procedures are. Now, if there is a climate within this administration, for example, where there's not a lot of pressure to hold people accountable, that could possibly influence some of the investigation and some of the processes. But I will tell you from firsthand knowledge about both of these cases, these are not closed cases. That's all I can say, but these are still open cases. So the fact that they're still open tells you that they're not even clear within the departmental levels. They still haven't been cleared entirely of these shootings in both situations.
Patricia Mullins kept referring to Iraq instead of Iran in an interview. Yeah, well, it's all the same over there, Patricia. Haven't you heard? Iraq, Iran, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan. It's just stands. It's just people in the sand and deserts, and it's all the same stuff.
It's an easy mistake to make. Iran, Iraq. I think Bush made that mistake in 2003, just went in the other direction.
I don't know. I'm not sure I would make that mistake, but I guess it depends where you're coming from. Mike Sawtell, 9184, $20, who's also a member. Thank you, man. John, since over 90% of all politicians take a lot of money from APAC and BB, ooh, we're moving over there now, are we, Mike?
We're going, Mike.
Ooh, has been to the WH 7 times in the last, the White House, he means, in the last 12 months, and we have 2 attacks on Iran. Is it it's safe to say Israel has too much influence? That's a whole other thing, Mike. I appreciate the super chat. We'll come around to that.
We will get to that, Mike.
But that is
and
I
have some information on that. Yeah, okay. I have some info, but we'll get to that.
Thank you. I very much appreciate the super chat on the question, but it is a hard left turn, my friend. We will move on to Iran and various subjects now in a moment. Mr. BGT 499. It's all very sad. Clown show. Well, that's definitely the feeling that I got with Kristi Noem. It's quite sickening, you know. If it was just a show, you could laugh at it. But when she's standing there in front of people who are, you know, behind bars, bunches of men incarcerated, and she's standing in front of those bars doing like a commercial in her little cosplay outfit and her Rolex, it begins to become a bizarre reality where you kind of want to pinch yourself and wake up, because it just doesn't seem real. Here's my next question. If she's with the America Shield or whatever they made up the other day.
Yeah.
What outfit does she get to wear now?
She might come out in full superhero garb. She might actually have a cape and a shield.
Yeah.
A big bronze bustier. I don't know. She might lean into full Wonder Woman.
It's going to be Captain America. Please and thank you, $5. Trump team filed a motion to be allowed to destroy evidence in the Pretty shooting. Is that true?
Again, this is where the media is not doing a good job, and people are kind of cherry picking. Anytime a federal law enforcement agent, and ICE is federal officials are involved in a use of force situation where they are on duty and they are executing their official duties, which they were in both the Renee Good shooting and the Alex Pretty shooting. If there is a lethal use of force, the local officials do not get any sort of jurisdiction within those. So when the mayor of Minneapolis went on TV and postured about, that the feds will not allow us into the crime scene and they won't allow state police to investigate the crime scene, they have absolutely no jurisdiction to do that. Just like the FBI cannot just come in. Again, this is where the media has broken people's brains. The FBI cannot show up to a local homicide and just claim jurisdiction because they're the FBI. That's something that happens in the movies.
What about Die Hard?
Yeah. And the New York cop has no legal authority in Los Angeles. That also doesn't work. So what happened there is it was federal law enforcement agents involved in a federal immigration operation who used lethal force. They answer to, in the Alex Preddy shooting, they were Border Patrol agents. So they answered to Customs and Border Protection, Internal Affairs, DHS Office of Inspector General, DHS-OIG, and the FBI. The FBI investigates any lethal use of force by other federal officials, typically because there can also be a Fourth Amendment violation if it's found to be improper, and any uses of force against federal agents, which is 18111, is investigated by the FBI if they charge the civilian in attacking a federal official. So the fact that there was no evidence destroyed, there was just a reluctance from the federal government to allow the state or the local officials to be involved, but that is well within their purview to do so. They have absolutely no obligation to do that, and typically don't.
Jim Patterson's Noem could be prosecuted under a different Congress. Don't forget, we just mentioned that.
Yeah.
This can,
Well, they all can be, yeah. And this is where, that's why it's very difficult to kind of for people to realize, like, yeah, Trump is in power now, but all the people that are kind of doing the dirty work on the ground level and several layers above, I don't think any appointments, politicians are going to be prosecuted, because in order to be prosecuted, you have to actually prove criminal charges. I don't know that Kristi Noem has done anything criminal. If she did, it's obviously not something that's publicly known. But in terms of the agents and the shooting, for example, that can definitely be re-reviewed. And if a new administration comes in, let's say, President AOC and Vice President Mamdani come in, and they decide to dismantle ICE and go after, individual officers and agents, they can certainly direct their Justice Department to investigate those cases and bring federal charges against those officers and agents if they deem that that's something they want to do. And that's happened in the past. There was a U.S. Marshal who was involved in a shooting who the Biden administration actually went back and prosecuted after the first Trump term. So it has happened. There is precedent for it.
Before we move on, I'm just going to hit another couple of comments here. Yes, sorry, Simon. Hi from Westgate, C. Kent. He always says the same thing. It's so funny. David Blue, if why? The FBI blocked Minnesota from the investigation.
Yeah, yes, just explain that.
Yeah. E. Rogers, great politics has crept into my watch stuff. Well, here you are, man. If you know my channel,
we'll talk about the Pepsi. I'm sure we'll get there.
We'll do that at the very end. Well, if you know my channel, I figure out a way of talking about plenty of political stuff involving watches. Galileo Galilei was sentenced to house arrest for the remaining years of his life. This is the man who discovered how to keep accurate time, the discovery of isochronism, but because he suggested that perhaps the earth was revolving around the sun and not the other way around, he was flying in the face of the church and deemed a heretic, and then put away. He didn't die in a jail. He died at home. He was under house arrest. But it can show you how politics and horology can overlap in many cases. But I don't need to defend myself with such examples. I can fucking do whatever I want because this is my channel. And people tune in, it seems. Nonetheless, guys, give me an upvote if you're enjoying the show. This is our guest, John. He works for the U.S. government. I can't say which department, although if you have a couple of brain cells, you've probably figured out which one by now, and it is not his real name. We have to keep him completely anonymous, which is why he can't appear on the screen either. He's appeared many times on the channel and is always insightful and fun. He also has his own Substack, which I should promote now, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
There it is.
There you go. And I also don't stick to watches. I also don't stick to watches or any topic. So if you want one take only on anything, this is not the place.
This is John's Substack. If you want to check in on him weekly or bi-weekly in some cases, There it is in the chat. You can click straight on it and subscribe. His latest podcast, whatever you call it, Substack article is about, of course, Iran, and we're going to move over to that. I really enjoyed this one, actually.
Thanks, man.
I liked the quips. I liked a little bit of comedy in there as
You have
well.
to, yeah.
You know, and some really, really strong points in there. Now, as I
And
was
if you
saying,
don't like it, it's free. So you are getting your money's worth. It's a free Substack, and I do provide audio overlays. You can read it, you can click play, or you can just listen to it, whatever you want. But I try not to keep them too long. I know, Oshin, you and I talked about this. I'm always conscious of being too verbose or too, long-winded. But if that's not the case, I'm definitely grateful for that. But I am conscious of it.
no, it's good. Whenever I see one, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait till tomorrow morning when I'm making my coffee and get tucked into this. But again, as I said to you earlier, I'd love them to be twice as long as they are. They definitely leave me wanting more in all.
Yeah.
cases.
My wife made
So-
the suggestion that instead of writing out an entire article and then reading it and kind of interjecting, I should start putting out more podcasty type where I just have notes and then I just speak on those notes kind of extemporaneously and then move on to the next topic. And I was
Yeah,
like,
sure.
honey, do you think anybody wants to listen to me for over an hour? So I guess maybe we'll see. We'll have to test those waters.
Well, we're testing it right now because we're
Yeah, that's
already
true.
approaching 3/4 of an hour. I always say it that I do a show on a Friday and then the world changes the next day. It's like I should do this Who Needs a Drink on a Saturday, but shifting over to a Saturday, the audience come back on a Friday quite heavy, quite thick
Yeah.
because they're expecting it. But it just happens over and over again. I do a thing on a Friday, we talk, and then the following day something drops, something goes great, a war starts or something drops. And that was exactly what happened last week. The following that night, I went to bed that night, and then the Ayatollah was taken out. Iran got hit with strikes. And since then, we've seen a barrage of missiles hit Tehran. I shouldn't say we've seen them because actually everything is being censored to a certain degree. And Tel Aviv is being hit, Dubai is being hit. We'll get onto Dubai in a moment. I think it's a very interesting case. So now we're at war, finally, with Iran, which is something I feel like the whole world has been waiting to happen now since way back in the early noughties. Who was the general who said, what was his name? Who said on a stage that he had seen a briefing with a whole plan of all the various countries that they were going to attack. And the last one on the list was Iran. It seems like everyone, including the Iranians, were waiting for this to happen. It was on the grocery list, you might say, and certainly for Bibi Netanyahu, who's been spreading ideas about this and pushing this idea for a very long time. Iran's a week away from obtaining or creating a nuclear bomb, blah blah blah, and apparently they've been a week away from it for the past 30 years. We don't know if that was grandstanding or not. Obama, of course, tried to put certain rules in place and come to certain agreements. Trump ripped those up because he thought they were a joke, blah, blah, blah. Now here we are. We're bombing I'm not fucking... I've spent 20 years in New
You're
York.
still an American. There's a part of you that's still an American.
Yeah, my heart is still on the Lower East Side, in the East Village of Manhattan. But here we are. We've finally gotten there. At least now there's no more of this saber rattling about it. It's actually happening. They've taken out the Ayatollah during Ramadan, I might add. Their supreme leader during Ramadan. It's like killing Santa at Christmas or something. And There are so many thoughts I'm having. First of all, I'm sympathetic to Iran. I don't see Iran the same way as the West. Much of the West, certainly Americans, see Iran. My cousin's a big traveler, and he's been to nearly every country in the world. And he's been to Iran 7 or 8 times, and it's one of his favorite countries. I know some Iranians. I knew some in New York, and I kind of follow their culture a little bit. And yes, sure, it's a religious country. There are a lot of religious countries around the world. But for me, it was always portrayed way too harshly, in a strange light, in a dark light, like the places North Korea or worse or something like that, when in fact it is not. There is a huge disparity between Zionist Iranians around the world, the quote unquote LA Persians and so on, the American Iranians, all celebrating on the streets because the Ayatollah has been taken out, versus the footage I'm seeing coming out of Tehran, which tells a very, very different story. And there's a lot of very upset people over there. The questions, I suppose, the only questions that matter at this point, now that the damage has been done, is how far can Iran go with this fight? I don't believe for a second they can win the fight, but how much damage can they do before they are actually fully defeated? What's your opinion on this, John?
So, I mean, obviously, predictions are predictions. In terms of Iran's capability, I can definitely speak to their intelligence side. It's not good. Their external security system is not very good. Their so-called spy agency is not well funded. They're not well trained. One of the biggest blunders they had recently was those guys that were arrested by the FBI, who were basically sent in to try to take out Trump at the direction of the Iranian government. That was kind of a blunder, and that actually played a small but very critical part in Trump's decision to uh, kind of work with the Israelis on this most recent campaign. For the sake of brevity and simplicity, I will just call this a war. I know I'm typically a stickler for legal definitions and terms, but for the sake of conversation, I'll just refer to this as a war, even though technically it's war is declared by Congress, and this is technically a military campaign or intervention, whatever you want to call it, but we'll just call it a war.
Okay.
As far as their capabilities, they obviously do not have the traditional capabilities of a country like the United States or China or even Saudi Arabia, and certainly not Israel. But that is kind of a double-edged sword, because what Iran has become very good at is asymmetrical warfare. And the weird paradox there is that when you take a conventional force and you fight unconventional warfare with a conventional force, that can actually go against you. The United States has seen this in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, where conventional military gets bogged down and has to eventually leave because they can't actually win the war, and they
Yeah.
can't defeat the asymmetry of an insurgency or guerrilla tactics. The United States saw this in Vietnam. They saw this in Iraq. They saw this in Afghanistan. And Russia is kind of experiencing that now in Ukraine. So a large army, a large fleet of warships and air power, all that stuff is obviously you know very important for a conventional military, but it's only important if you're fighting a conventional military within the conflict. So peer-to-peer adversary, that matters. But where Iran can be very dangerous is their ability to operate outside of their borders through their proxies, but also their ability to destabilize the regions. The drones they're using are very inexpensive. They can basically continue using these drones however they want, and what they can do is make the region much more dangerous and much less inhabitable, so to speak, not only for the people actually living there, but they can actually damage businesses and they can damage tourism. Places
Yeah.
like Dubai are heavily reliant on tourism. Saudi Arabia is trying to kind of change their image and wanting to bring in more and more Western influence and open up the border, open up the country to Western and European tourists. So Iranian kind of proxies and drone strikes and these targeted attacks at infrastructure and hotels and all this stuff, this is by design. This is exactly what a insurgency or a militia would do. And in the criminal side, it's the same thing. You know, you're not going to go shoot it out with the police, you know, police officers at the police station, but you're also you're going to be very selective, and they're a lot more nimble than than a larger military. So this could turn into kind of a insurgency type of situation, but also air power only gets you so far, because this is where the confusing part for me is what's the point? What's the plan? What's the end state that we're looking for? Because even if you knock out all of their anti-air missiles and you control the sky entirely, if you want to implement a regime change, at some point you have to go on the ground. Now, there's been talks that the American government is reaching out to the Kurds and Turkey and hoping to work with them to try to arm the Kurdish militias to.
The Kurds have denied that, absolutely, flat out denied that that's taking place.
And I will say we've tried that in the past. That has also come back to bite us several times, where we arm insurgent groups and they do our bidding and then we kind of leave. So,
like the Taliban,
the Taliban. So there's a lot of considerations here, and I pointed this out in the article that I think that some of the restraint that this administration sees as inaction and ineptitude and fear was actually all those considerations about the secondary and tertiary and fourth order effects that could take place, which is why basically every president since Carter has been reluctant to pull this specific proverbial trigger. And what pushed Trump over the edge, there's a couple things. Initially, he was reluctant to do it as well. He told Bibi initially no. And then what started to happen, from my understanding, the people that I've spoken to, and some of this has obviously already been covered in the news, was that when the Israelis launched the first attack, Trump saw that it was actually successful and that they were actually hitting targets and it was working. And so at that point, he decided, okay, well, now that there seems to be support for this and this seems to be effective, I want to get in on the action, which is where you had the June attack with the stealth bombers, where they took out some of the major sites with the bunker busters. Because
what are you talking about? What are you talking? They obliterated.
Well, that's it's either been obliterated, but yet we're still back there taking out the sites. So was it obliterated, or were they not obliterated?
They've completely vanquished their whole proliferation scheme going on there. But now, within the space of a couple of months, it's all back,
all back,
ready, and now they're a week away from a bomb.
And I think what Netanyahu probably did, I would be shocked if he didn't do this, because Netanyahu's an intelligent guy, and the Mossad is very capable. And I think I've discussed this before, that most sophisticated intelligence services will conduct a psychological profile on world leaders.
Yeah.
And Trump is probably one of the easiest people to do this on, because he's so transparent and he's so transactional and he's so basically what you see is what you get. So I think Netanyahu and the Israeli government knows that flattery works, that he's easily manipulated. And what I think Netanyahu did was, not only did he go to Trump and say that if you do this, you will be the only American president who had the balls to finally take out Iran. This has been a thorn in our side for decades, and you are going to be the decisive president to do this. And don't forget, they tried to kill you. Are you really going to let that stand?
Right.
And playing on that ego, I think, is what finally convinced Trump to go, completely in on this.
What are you hearing these rumors about Bible verses within the military trying to convince troops that this is some sort of it's God's plan. Have you heard about any of this
Within
stuff?
the Israeli military or the U.S.?
No, within the U.S. This is, I mean, it's all over the place. Here's one sample. This is a political commenter. She's actually huge. She's got like 2.5 million followers.
I haven't heard this.
Last fall during our rapture scare, I said the Christians don't mind conflict in the Middle East because they believe it will usher in the rapture, Armageddon, and the return of Christ. Now we're seeing this play out in real time. There's been several military complaints from NCOs saying that their commanding unit officers told them that Trump is anointed by God, to trust God's divine plan, because Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and usher in the second coming of Christ. And these officers, these non-commissioned officers, were told to tell their troops and their units that. Understand that none of this is biblical, but this is central to Christian nationalist ideals around American exceptionalism, that America is a core feature of the Bible, which isn't true. The Bible wasn't written about America. Iran has nothing to do with the end of the world. These are all written into the text in order to justify certain behavior, and they have been for over 100 years.
Okay, so there's been tons of reports about this all day today, that a lot of troops are actually coming forward saying, I don't want to hear this shit. You know, I love my country and I'll fight for my country, but I don't want to hear this fucking nonsense about the fucking rapture and that Trump has been anointed by God and all of this.
That would be surprising. Again, my experience is, obviously I can't speak to what is going on in the military now. That's not something I've heard from any of my friends that are still in the military. That would be surprising to me. I spent 8 years in the military before going into public service in my other jobs, but the religious thing was never really a focal point. Religion's not really kind of a central theme in the military, at least in the branches.
This is why the complaints are coming in.
So it's odd. What could have potentially happened is maybe an officer said something and the NCOs interpreted that as sort of an order, and they made the complaint. That I don't think that that's systemic in terms of the military. The military typically stays not only apolitical, they definitely don't endorse or celebrate any particular president. They typically kind of leave that away. There's actually rules against that. You're not allowed to go to political rallies in uniform. You're not allowed to openly endorse or condemn any public officials, even during election seasons. But again, to be fair, the president is the commander in chief. So technically anybody in service, that is their boss. So I would be surprised if this was happening with any regularity, but it's possible that some commander, a one-star general or a colonel maybe said some sort of remark, and that was interpreted as, beyond the pale, pardon the
It sounds like something a bit more serious, beyond the pale, a bit more serious than that. But
I haven't heard anything like that, though. I haven't seen any other reporting.
You're not on social media as much as I am.
I'm not. I'm either not on the right. My algorithm might be very different than yours. I get a lot of watch content and workout videos, and that's pretty much it. It's a very boring life over here.
Gobbery, 20 euros. Thanks, man. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is his name. Exodus 15:3. Oh boy. Thank you for that. That's interesting stuff.
Is that a question or his proclamation?
I don't know what that is. Shall we look at this possible new leader of Iran, Pahlavi? I mean, I think Trump threw him under the bus the other day and kind of said, I don't know, he's a nice guy, but maybe we'll get someone from within Iran, because perhaps it's becoming...
Well, he did earlier say that everybody he thought would be the potential successor was already dead. It's like,
was already dead.
You killed them.
Yeah, you just killed them. Pahlavi, I mean, there couldn't be a worse person. I think they would kill him within 5 minutes of going in there. But let's take a look at this.
Of this regime. The state of Israel will be recognized immediately.
Look at him at the Wailing Wall.
Are you actually saying then that Israel bombing your country is a positive thing?
Yeah, I don't think that it was an intention of the Israeli government to attack Iranian civilians.
The Star of David and the lion and sun
Speaking of
flying
AIPAC.
proudly side by side.
Jesus.
Through the expansion of the Abraham Accords into the Cyrus Accords, bringing together a free Iran, Israel, and the Arab world.
Wow.
You know, I got to say, reality makes it really hard for me to recoil against conspiracy theories.
Yes.
It's making it more and more difficult. I think there's a fundamental, I think, misunderstanding of the Middle East in the West. And I think that's kind of what everything pivots on, even with places like Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, the whole idea that we were going to go into Afghanistan and build schools and highways, and we were going to implement this central government and appoint this leader, and the Taliban was just going to go away, and all the people would just decide that this was now a democracy. That is just such a far-fetched notion, because whatever you think of the Taliban didn't descend from Mars. You know, they're people within the community. These were people that came to power, and they maintained power, and they stayed in power, and it's a tribal system. Same thing in Iraq. You know, you had Sunni, Shia, Kurds, you had the Ba'athists, you had this whole kind of melting pot of politics and religion and sectarian kind of divides. And the West has never been really the antidote to any of that. And I don't know that it ever will be. So it's a strange orientation that we look at something like World War II and we consider our successes in Europe and think that we can replicate that in the Middle East by just repeating the same formula over and over again. But
There's
what's worse
another-
now is these half measures.
Here's another thing about this religious extremism, and I just want to give this guy a shout out for the fact that in his studio, he's clearly a music producer.
And
That he has
fantastic hair too. Jesus.
great hair. Yeah, that rivals my hair even, I would say. It's kind of similar in ways. He has an original pair of NS10s. That's the GOAT. That's the Rolex Submariner of studio monitors, and no longer made. They're the original thing. But anyway, let me just get some volume on this. I'll refresh that. There seems to be a lot of stuff coming in about.
We've been hearing about the war in Iran is being reported by John Larson and the Huffington Post, among many, that religious ideologies are creeping into military orders, and service members are now contacting the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, reporting that they're being given orders with religious backing. This is kind of scary, and it gets even scarier. Even as far as the military commander telling their troops that Trump was anointed by Jesus to lead the war in Iran, to ignite the signal fire, to cause Armageddon, and mark his return to earth. They're talking about Jesus. And they're promoting to the troops that this war is biblical and to stick to your orders and know that you're doing it for God.
Now, I would say, if there's any truth to this, that the reason why it might be happening, and this, I'm just going on a limb here, out on a limb, is that because it's been, I guess, because of social media contributing, that it might be difficult for a lot of these troops to swallow the bullshit this time. You know, during Iraq, they thought they were spreading freedom and saving the people and so on. So many of the troops have to believe they're fighting for the right side. And most of them do. And in most cases, you're looking at patriots, people who pick up arms and go halfway across the world to fight people they've never met. It might be tougher this time because you have on both sides, you have Nick Fuentes and you have Joe Rogan and you have all these people, even right-wingers on YouTube, telling people this ain't right. Why are we going over there? What are we doing? This is Israel's war. This is not America's war. Americans are going to die. You saw what happened in Iraq. You saw it was a mess. Why are we doing this all over again? Yada, yada, yada. And I feel like they're just upping the ante. They're going, yeah, but don't you believe in Jesus Christ our Lord? And and they're tickling that little nerve there with people. That I feel like it's. When I heard about this, I was like, oh, here they go. They're putting guilt into the troops. That's what it feels like.
So the
are
other
you having second thoughts because you were listening to Nick Fuentes last night or Alex Jones? Well, what about this? What about Jesus Christ our Lord? Boom.
Yeah, I think the other problem here, well, there's also the fact that I think most people in America are becoming more secular. There's been
Right.
some resurgence of religion with younger people, but you obviously you're very spot on with the fact that there's so much exposure to the news now. You know, I was in the military from 2000 to 2008.
Mhm.
So when I came in, you know, there
Someone
was no
asked, did you
social media.
serve in the Middle East? Did you serve over
Yes,
there? Yeah.
yes, in Iraq, not Afghanistan.
Okay.
But there's two things. One, obviously, the exposure to information, and the I would say to some extent more sophistication by some of the younger people that just know more. They may be misguided in certain areas, but they definitely have much more information today than I had when I was 18, 19 years old, serving. Well, 2000 to 2008. I was a little older than 18, but the second thing is guys my age and guys that have had that previous experience in Iraq, in Afghanistan, are now the leadership. So
Right.
there's a dual impact there where there's senior non-commissioned officers, senior officers. One of my best friends is a lieutenant colonel. So that is, you know, uh, I'm sorry, actually, he's a full bird colonel now. So he's one rank away from being a one-star general, and he's my age. So you've got the middle and top middle officer corps consisting of Iraq war veterans, Afghanistan war veterans, and then the senior non-commissioned officers are also the same. So those guys have personal firsthand experience with these sort of kind of odd wars that we're engaging in. So there's a lot of friction there. Those guys know exactly what this could turn out to be. And so there's definitely hesitation and reluctance there. So if this is happening again, I don't know. I haven't seen any of that reporting besides what you just showed me. That is
Yes.
definitely very alarming if they are pushing the religious angle on the military, because that is a first.
It's all over the place, man. It's everywhere. There's another thing for me. This whole just it was only over the weekend that someone it was in the iBashers chat with Dirk. Someone was saying, 30,000 people were slain on the streets of Iran, protesters and so on. And the moment I heard it, I was no fan of the regime, of the Ayatollah, but I certainly don't see him the way most of the West do. And when I heard it, I thought 40 beheaded babies. It was the same shit.
It's
Same
hard
shit.
to tell. Yeah, it is hard to tell. Obviously, Iran is going to control the narrative coming out of Iran.
Right.
Obviously, the U.S. and Israel is going to fill that void and that kind of propaganda gap with their information. So it
And
is tough.
boy, oh boy, do we have a track record of that.
Yeah.
I'm playing little clips here to show people. A lot of my audience don't spend any time on social media, so I'm kind of bringing them up to speed with at least what the young people are seeing, and that is the next generation, guys. These are the new leaders, the next leaders of the world. They're in their 20s, and this is what they're seeing. This is what they're absorbing, whether you like it or not, whether it suits you or not. Here's an interesting one.
We've been secretly and methodically hacking into Iran's surveillance systems and street cameras for years in order to plot the assassination of Khomeini and all of his IRGC commanders.
Impressive.
We literally have a live stream street view of every road, intersection, alleyway, the inside of their homes, the headquarters, hospitals, schools, you name it.
Oh my God. So you probably have the footage of the 30,000 protesters that were gunned down by the IRGC in one day. Like, that's all we need to take down the regime.
Yeah, of course we do.
So where is it?
Well, let me just find it. It's on my phone somewhere.
Finally.
Yeah, I found it.
Found it.
Here.
Oh boy, the Shah's coming back today. Can't wait to share this with my
AI.
Oh, Jesus.
It's real. It's real.
Yeah. So listen, and this is my problem with this stuff. I don't forgive anyone who said 40 beheaded babies. I don't forgive the Israelis for saying it. I don't forgive Biden for regurgitating it. I don't forgive anyone in the audience who ever fucking believed that even for 5 seconds of their life. They can beg for my forgiveness. I'm not forgiving you. It was total horseshit, and I called it from the start. Where's the fucking evidence? There was never any evidence presented, and who the hell would need it? Why on earth would these people behead babies 40 and line them all up in a row? It's just bizarre, and it all it tells me is we're dealing with is people who will just invent lies and horseshit just to fix their agenda, go create a pathway for what they want. And with the second I heard of the 30,000 people, I know there were people slain on the streets of Tehran, protesters and so on. We know about that. But when you say 30,000 in one day, you begin to go, okay, you guys are just building this bullshit, aren't you? This is what you're doing. It just gets very, very sinister for me. And I'm sitting here in between fairly brutal regime in Iran, and then
Yeah.
an even what I see as a even more brutal and I don't know.
Well, there's an
untrustworthy one on the other side. I don't want to side with anyone at this point.
Yeah. Well, there is that asymmetry is what you're being told, what you're being, what's being reported, what's not being reported. I never understood the noble lie narrative that some people think that is a good idea. It's the thing that happened with COVID. It's the thing that happens when people criticize Trump and they add things that are obviously not true and things that he didn't say that aren't there. I didn't understand it with the Israeli move on October 7th. The event itself is bad enough. Whatever you're
Right.
talking about, that is atrocious enough. The Iranian regime is bad enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to defend any theocracy. I'm not going to
Mhm.
defend American theocracy. I would not defend Iranian theocracy. Part of my disagreements with Israel is that there is a theocratic element to that government too.
Right.
And the same thing with Tehran. So to me, theocracy has no place in any government, let alone in a Western style democracy. And certainly the Iranian regime is not a regime that I would endorse or support. But that doesn't mean that there is a very direct route to solve that problem without having to consider all the deviations from the end objective. And so this to me, again, this is like a half measure. We're not going to go in boots on the ground and just take the country over completely and try to build something new. We're just going to do this piecemeal approach and hopefully something sticks. And to me, these half measures just create more chaos, don't actually solve the problem, and in some cases create a bigger problem down the road. Because again, now you see the successor. You had the Ayatollah who was in his 80s. We took him out, and now his son, who is potentially going to be the new leader,
Yes.
is going to be, promoted into this position.
And sounds a bit more ruthless, actually. from
And
the
you
sound of it.
also inadvertently gave them a huge PR win and a huge propaganda win. He was martyred by the Americans and the Israelis.
Yes.
What more do you need if you are a hardline IRGC guy or a hardliner Iranian, Shia cleric than that? I mean, that is a poster that you just made for them. And so there's ways to do it. There's, covert and clandestine operations that could have been done. Israel has been doing that in the past. I think their approach to dealing with Hezbollah was actually very effective, the pager operation being a good example of this.
Mhm.
That is the way you fight terrorism. You don't fight asymmetrical wars with symmetrical measures. And so these, Western style bombing campaigns and all these things, that worked in Kuwait, because when Saddam invaded Kuwait, it was an army versus an army. We came in, we got him out, boom, all done. Let's go home. It was over within 100 hours. and that was a military success. But these types of engagements, they don't work out this way because the asymmetrical factor is actually to the benefit of the weaker country, in this case, Iran. And the conventional approach is really not going to solve this problem. So I think it's just going to be either a quagmire or a mess, either way.
Looking at the conflict itself, for me, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt who has the bigger military might here at all. There is no question about it. I know Iran has been preparing for a very long time for this because they've been seeing it coming for a long time, and they've been building up their arsenal. But I also know that they've had trouble with finances. They've been infiltrated many times over the past 2 decades, and weakened in many ways over those years. My issue with it is my question isn't who can win. There's a lot of people are like, "Oh, Trump can't defeat Iran. He won't win." I'm like, "Of course he'll win. Of course the West will win." But my thing about that is winning kind of might not matter because they'll still tear strips off you in the process. There's a famous clip out there of this young girl. She's a boxer, and I wish I had it here. I could bring it up. And she's talking. She just won, a boxing fight, and they're interviewing her, and she's like saying, "Oh, I'm so happy with myself. I knew I could defeat the opponent. Blah blah blah." And her face is completely pummeled to shit. Like her cheek is out here, one eye is completely closed, a couple of teeth are gone, there's blood everywhere, and she's still celebrating her win. I would hate to see the other girl, okay? but like clearly the other girl got as many shots in as she could. If I wrestle a pit bull to the ground that I need to, I don't know, some pit bull who's attacking people and I need to like break that thing's neck or something, I probably could. But in the meantime, while I'm trying, that thing is going to tear flesh off me. And the way I look at what's happening right now, Tel Aviv is being blasted to shit, and the government don't want anyone to show it. People are sticking it on TikTok and so on. I'm not going to see it on legacy media. I'm seeing it all over TikTok. You have to be careful that you're not looking at AI. I think at this point, I can pretty much figure out which one isn't. But they're taking a hammering, and Dubai as well. We'll come to that in a moment, and other places, Bahrain. I will remind the viewers that they're not hitting the people necessarily. They're going after military targets in places like Bahrain and so on. That's the whole point. The entire region is peppered with American military bases. So that's what they're going for first, because if anyone's going to attack them, it'll be from those places. It's not like they have any particular thing against the people of Bahrain. It's that they know there's an American military base there. Incidentally, there's several here in Italy, and there's a big joke going around the north of Italy right now that Vicenza, where I started the channel a few years back, more than a few years, because they have 2 military bases there, the Vicenza is going to get its ass kicked if it gets that far. But to me, it's like, how far can they go? How much flesh can they rip off their opponent before their opponent eventually defeats them? And at the end, in the end, does the victor kind of say, "Okay, I won, but I'm also like bleeding, like bruised, I'm broken, I'm bleeding. He tore strips off me." Before I eventually overcame and defeated him, because sometimes it isn't like it's real easy for the IDF to go in and just kill kids that have nothing. They have sticks and stones. It's very asymmetrical there, and you can just laugh your ass off through it. But it's a different thing then when you go up against a military that have some bombs that they can fire at you. My big question is, how long does that go on? Are they, because their story right now is that they're using all their old shit, all their crap shit, just to exhaust defensive measures on the receiving end before they start using their new stuff, their good stuff. I'm simplifying it here.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
may be just grandstanding. They may be already using their good stuff. They may be using everything they have. We don't know. They'll clearly lie about that if they have to. My only question here is it's not who will win. There's no question who will win and who will be the victor. My question is, how fucking long will this go on? And how long will Tel Aviv in 6 months look like Gaza? You know what I
So
mean?
I don't think that Iran can hold its own in any conventional battle against either Israel and certainly not against the United States.
Right.
If you look back at there is a cultural element to warfare that I think people underestimate. And the American tapestry is sort of war is a very big part of American culture. And the fact that the United States has a volunteer army and has a professional army, that goes a long way. In the United States, the military is very professional, very highly trained, and they're all volunteers. That's obviously the first point of distinction between us and other modern militaries. The second point is that you have a non-commissioned officer corps and you don't have what they call inner rank discipline. So countries like China, Russia, probably North Korea, well, definitely North Korea, but probably Iran. I don't know that much about the Iranian army as far as the discipline sort of thing, but the morale matters in those types of conflicts. And you saw this with the Iraq war, where the hardened groups were fighting, but the majority of the conventional Iraqi military surrendered en masse in 2003 when the first wave of the US invasion started. They were surrendering, just, entire battalions were surrendering because they didn't want to fight. So the theocratic and kind of dictatorial type of government creating a large military, it has a knock-on effect that actually is detrimental because a lot of those people don't want to be in the military, but they know that they have to serve the state. So that is obviously the human element of it. The technological element, there's definitely no comparison there. That being said, one of the benefits for the Iranians is that American munitions are very expensive, and we do not have an endless stockpile. A lot of people think that we just have an endless supply of bombs. We don't. We have a very specific amount of ordnance. We also have very expensive ordnance. Your average
Dude,
Iranian.
I've been watching bombs coming through in Tel Aviv where they fire like 8 or 10 defensive missiles up there to take this thing out, and it evades them. They probably spent, $500,000
You're
bucks.
talking about millions. And then if you're talking about joint munitions, the JDAMs, the bunker busters, the Tomahawk cruise missiles, those are incredibly expensive, whereas a drone fired from the Iranian side costs maybe $30,000.
Some of the drones don't even have anything in them.
Yeah,
They just have,
that's a nice car. So
Yeah.
if you're talking about the price comparison there, this is going to be a very expensive war for the United States and for Israel, and it's going to be a very cheap war for the Iranian regime. The other problem here is, I would say everything pivots on what victory looks like. In the analogy of the boxing match, there is a
Yes.
clear end state that both opponents know has to be achieved. And
Right.
so they're working towards that very clearly defined end state. In this sort of conflict, especially when it's not peer to peer, there is no clear end state because the victor, how do you know when you've won? So my question becomes, what does winning look like? And this is where the administration
Right.
hasn't really been very clear, because if their goal is simply to remove the current regime and then replace it with something external, that's one point. That's one, that's a possibility. The second possibility is we're going to remove the regime and we want something organic to come up from within the country. That's option two. Option three is you go in with an actual military force and you actually hold ground and you literally invade Iran, and then you try to again do the Iraq, thing of let's hold elections and let's elect a leader, and we have American soldiers on every block at polling stations providing security for free and fair elections. That's scenario three. So I don't think that there's a defined win end state, and that cripples any potential strategy, because if you don't know what the objective is, and you're not going to know
Oh,
how
well,
to get there.
it seems to change from one era to the next because the administration of the United States are saying, Trump and Hegseth and so on are saying things like, "Well, we want to stop them from getting a nuclear bomb." And apparently that was solved along months ago when they went
Yeah.
in and struck those areas. And then it's regime change. It's like, well, what are you doing then? Like,
Yeah.
what's the objective?
Well, even the narrative around the nuclear bomb changed several times, because the original argument was that they were developing enough fission material to build a nuclear bomb. But then
Yeah.
the argument came, well, they don't have an intercontinental ballistic missile anyway. So even if they had the nuclear material, they can't deliver it anywhere. So then the
Mhm.
argument shifted towards, well, but they could deliver it to Israel. And now
Yeah.
the most recent conversation, Marco Rubio actually said this in a press conference, and this is what they refer to as the North Korea strategy, which is you build your nuclear program behind a conventional army and a conventional military ballistic response. So one of the reasons when people say, why don't we go in and invade North Korea and just take out the Kim dynasty? Obviously, for the humanitarian concerns and who's going to run the country, and the fact that China would probably not allow it, the North Koreans have created artillery and missile silos around kind of their border. So if there was any kind of strike or decapitation attempt, they would launch a barrage of conventional weapons into South Korea. So
Uh-huh.
the nuclear program is actually being hidden and sort of protected by the conventional ballistic missile program, which is what now they're claiming Iran was doing, that they were going to rebuild the nuclear program, but in the meantime, they were going to build this arsenal of conventional rockets so that if Israel ever tried to do something again, they would launch such a barrage at Israel that Israel would be completely gone. And that would protect their nuclear program. It's like a game of, chess. You're protecting the king with all your pawns.
Right. Zalmore, 7 Canadian. Thank you, sir. You were forgetting about China and Russia being backup support of Iran. This is more messy than looking at US versus Iran. Yeah, apparently China sent in some aircraft weeks ago that went off the radar. They turned off their transponders once they
Yeah, I
left.
don't want to sound like a douchebag writer, but I covered this in my article.
Yeah, and they're trying to figure out what technology they were bringing over there. Some say it was some sort of radar blocking technology, so that United
Yeah.
States aircraft may not be able to identify each other properly. And then, strangely, just the other day, was it over Kuwait? They shot down
Yeah,
their
friendly
own
fire.
friendly fire, and I'm like, oh my god, is that those transponders or those blockers in action? That's the question.
Well,
But
the other thing, this is where if you take the lid off this hornet's nest, for China, there's two benefits here. One is that they are obviously going to stay out of it in terms of,
Yeah.
formally committing troops, because they don't want open hostilities with the US. So they're
Right.
not going to you're not going to see battalions of Chinese troops supporting the Iranians, and you're not going to see Chinese planes flying over Iran shooting down IDF fighter jets. But what you will see is two things. This is just my prediction and calculation. One, China gets to test its military equipment against American and Israeli equipment with no cost to them.
Yeah, right. They can let someone
So
else
for
be the
them,
guinea
this
pig.
is it's
Yeah.
a real world war game scenario. They get
Right.
to provide equipment. They will probably take Chinese flags off of it and let the Iranians employ it and see how it stands against American and Israeli
Well, the Chinese are gonna play a
munitions.
long game. Of course they are.
And
That's their
now, and
history.
they're going to take those lessons learned, and they're going to revise and change their military tactics. The second thing they'll do is they will definitely allow us to bankrupt ourselves fighting another war in the Middle East.
Galaxian 20 euros. Do folk ever take a step back and think, is this guy if this guy is a criminal, should he be in jail? Totally illegal, immoral, killing the leader and the entire government of a sovereign country. Now he's murdering the people. Well, I certainly think that. I mean, that school, all those young girls. I'm never
assuming,
going to.
for a second there, I thought he was talking about me. Jesus.
Yeah. Are you a criminal?
I'm not a criminal. How dare you, sir?
Frank Pillpot, $5. Thanks. Shades of Venezuela, except worse. I would say a lot worse. Another proxy war between USA, Russia, and China, where oil is the currency of the day. I personally think, just as a side note, I think it's at the behest of Israel, and Israel wants instability in the region. The moment that Iran become powerful and prosperous, the moment they flourish, the moment they have stability, that's bad news for Israel. It suits Israel to see turmoil in the region. And
I think to some extent there's definitely some truth to that, but I do think to some extent there are other considerations here, and the other Gulf states play a pivotal role here, and this might be a good pivot point towards Dubai. But I think the considerations for the other Gulf states is critical here. And Israel is obviously a powerful country within the region. But if you consider the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Bahrain angle of it, there's more to it than that. While they probably would benefit from a collapse of the Iranian regime and normalized relationships with Iran, I don't think those countries benefit financially or diplomatically, and certainly not in terms of their supply chains when it comes to any sort of prolonged conflict in the region. So this is bad for the region. While it may be beneficial to Israel in the long term politically, it's causing a lot of economic problems in the region, as I'm sure we'll talk about here.
Nice segue, man.
There you go.
You should definitely do this for a living. So this is footage coming out of...
Very silent, guys. As you can see, no one is there outside. Even that side that was in Dubai Mall and the fountain. But today, even one person, nobody's there. The road is silent and the sky is dark.
This is footage. She's risking her life or her livelihood. Here's another interesting clip. Just posting that, and that's why it's very interesting to me, because it's not just what's going on there in the region, but it's the fact that they're trying to censor it so heavily and in such an obvious way. We can all witness it. Here's an interesting one here I found as well. I've got so many clips, man. It's crazy.
No, it's been a busy week.
Yeah.
For one of my videos about Dubai. And when the police call you, they don't tell you why you should come to the police station. So I was freaking out. So I asked them, like, what is this for? They said, just come. And the funny part is they're super polite to you and say, would you please come? And when are you coming? I said, I'm coming now. I'm not gonna wait. So going to the police station, the waiting time was a torture. And when I came to the officer, I was asking him, like, is this something really bad? He said, if it was bad, we will come and get you. If we have invited you to come at any time convenient for you, that means nothing bad is there. So anyway, then they say, unfortunately, I cannot say what the video was about because I deleted it and I don't want to say it. He said, we actually liked your video. It's really funny and it's true, but you have to delete it. At that time, while I was there, I was ready to delete my whole Instagram, social media. I was ready to delete myself from it because you don't really joke with this stuff. So guys, anything you post online, please be very careful of what you're saying.
Okay. People have been evacuating, you might say, Dubai in droves. Here's one that my audience might relate to. These are Irish expats getting back to Ireland in Dublin Airport.
It was unreal. It was very unreal. I mean, you see these things on television, you see them in in movies, but you just don't think you'll end up there yourself. You know, you're coming home from a holiday. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything. We got home. Everyone clapped when the plane landed and we all cheered. It was just unreal. Yeah, magic. We only got very short notice, you know, we had to grab our bags and then go, you know. So it's just, I don't know what else to say.
It was pretty awful for the first 24 hours because you just didn't know what was happening, and there was a lot of noises that you were not used to.
Now, let me cut to the chase here. So, what we've been seeing on social media is a strange barrage of conflicting messages. On the one hand, you have people like that. There's plenty of videos, I have tons of them, of people arriving back in London, Heathrow, Dublin, etc., etc. There's even videos of people instructing others how to get out of Dubai and drive over to Oman and get on a plane there. There's also advertisements on Instagram and TikTok of companies saying, we will fly you out for $20,000. I actually have all the links. I just don't have enough time to go through it. Selling one-way tickets to get out of there. So it's like Saigon or something.
Yeah.
It's like a mass exodus. It's wild.
Similar happened in Ukraine too.
Right. And the crazy part to me is just the contrast then when you see other influencers going, we're not scared, everything's fine. Look, I'm walking down the streets of Dubai. It's all good. They're making a big deal out of nothing. We're fine. It's very safe. This is still. And then there's the videos like, we're not scared. Here's our great leader. The Sheikh is like walking through the city and he stands with us. I wrote to an influencer the other day who have been following me for a couple of years now. And I was like, are you serious with this weird propaganda video like that you recorded in your car, just like praising the leader? I was like, what's going on, girl? This is weird. Like, are you being forced to say what you're saying? Blink once if yes, blink twice if no.
Like a hostage video.
Yeah, literally that. It's crazy. Then he goes down with his bunch and they have coffee in a mall. And there's photographers everywhere. Like, hey, look how normal life is. Our great leader can sit here and have coffee nonchalantly, you know, in the afternoon in the mall. And it just seems really dystopian to me. I'm like, why are you all doing this? Like, clearly there's chaos. Clearly there's fear. Everyone's racing out of the area. And what the hell is going on? Don't you know that we have social media? Don't you know we're going to figure this out? Do you think we're all stupid?
I think there's a disorienting factor, though, that takes place in human psychology, which is at the very beginning of a chaotic situation, your brain still clings to normalcy. It takes a while for your consciousness to catch up to the reality of what's happening. So in the first days of a war, there are still remnants of normal life that your brain is focusing on. And it is kind of this dystopian view of it, but that's just your brain trying to rationalize what's happening, and it's clinging to the remnants of reality. But there's also something to be said about how detached Westerners are from life in non-Western countries,
Right.
particularly
It's like
second and third world countries,
a
where
big smack of reality coming
and
in.
the same thing happened recently in Mexico when Mexico launched the campaign to capture the leader of the New Generation cartel in Jalisco, and they allegedly killed him and captured several of his lieutenants. That region of Mexico broke out into essentially, you know, the second act of a zombie movie.
Right.
And you still had people walking around with their cell phones filming cars that were on fire and saying, well, I guess we'll go get a coffee.
This
So
woman is saying there's two places still remaining on the Muscat flight to Frankfurt. Look, this is
Ciao a tutti, notizie dell'ultimo. Abbiamo ancora 2 posti rimasti in un charter domani mattina alle ore 8.
So we still have 2 places remaining on tomorrow morning's charter for only 6,000. This is her post on Instagram to advertise places on the plane.
Yeah.
They
If
found them.
anybody ever needed a reason to purchase a Rolex, here you go.
There it
Liquid
is.
cash on your wrist. I'll give
Yeah.
you my Pepsi. Get
Yeah.
me the fuck out of
Get
this
me
country.
the fuck out of here. Isn't it
Done.
wild?
That is a one-way ticket out of a war zone. Buy a Rolex, people.
This is the coffee propaganda scene here. Let me share this over. I'll turn the volume off because it's just noise. Where the Sikh is sitting there with all his buddies, like having coffee, and everyone's taking photos just to create an image of normalcy.
Yeah,
I
and this
mean,
is
wild.
their PR machine kicking into gear because again,
Right.
they're trying to normalize not only their own image and they're trying to push away from their radical Sunni elements within their country and their hardliners. They're trying to invite Westerners into the country, open the country up for business. You saw the Riyadh Comedy Festival recently. That was kind of the
Yes.
first volley.
Right.
So whatever you think of, again, this is, we are very close with very dangerous regimes. I mean, MBS is not a nice guy. He had a
No.
journalist cut into little pieces and shipped
Right.
out of a consulate
Exactly.
in a van.
Exactly.
So we're more than willing to sell them weapons and cozy up to them because they align with us economically.
Dude, check this
So-
one out. Check this one out. This one made me laugh.
Ago, and today we're going to have iftar in this very hotel.
So this is the hotel that was bombed. It was the Fairmont, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, today we're going to go have lunch. Watch this for propaganda.
Which is called the Fairmont. And now I'm here with my wife and my son just to show how quick Dubai responds. Look at the number of kids, the children here. Nobody's scared. And the food is amazing.
There's no one sitting
Yeah.
at the other table.
Well, this would be like if you and I went to a restaurant and a day before we got there, there was a stabbing. And the maitre d' said, "Look how quickly we cleaned up the crime scene." Your table, gentlemen. Have a seat.
I got a lot of comments that you're doing this because you're a real estate agent, but no, that's not the case. I've lived here for 25 years and I'm proud to call this my home country and I'm going to defend it no matter what.
Oh my God, he's a real estate agent.
Buy my course.
Oh my God. Is Dubai cooked? Is it done?
I mean, I've always thought of Dubai as the Miami of the Middle East.
Right.
That's one of the places. Tim invited me to the Dubai watch event,
Sure.
and I politely declined. I've again, you and I talked about Syriana,
Yes.
the film Syriana. I think that depicts that
Yeah.
region fairly well. They're in a complicated position. Again, I want Dubai to prosper. I want the entire world to prosper. That is
Sure.
my egalitarian dream for everybody to be happy and for peace and love on earth. But it's a very artificial environment that they've created. And I don't know that it has longevity. And they are extremely dependent on tourism, external support, because again, regardless of how much oil and money you have, when you're shipping out the oil and you're selling it, your entire country can't work in the oil industry. You
Yeah.
need additional economic growth around that oil industry. So the natural resource is just a means to an end. So there's a certain problem there. Again, you look at countries in Africa where they have diamond mines, but there's nothing around it because it's not a safe place to live. Nobody else wants to invest business in it. So they will mine the diamonds and extract the natural resource, but then nobody's reinvesting into the region. And that's what places like Dubai are trying to change. They want that appearance of friendliness and Westernness, and to try to attract tourism and investment and additional businesses. But I don't know how sustainable it's ever been. But I think now with this conflict, it's possible that, again, I don't know if the Saudi uh, government will collapse, but their economy is definitely going to be hurt by this. I can't imagine that it's not, because all you need is a few visceral images of drones flying into hotels, and people are going to stop going there on holiday from Europe and certainly from
It's
the United
happened
States.
already. That
It's already
the
happening. And you're
that
already seeing this in Mexico. And this is why the Mexican government, to some extent, has always tried to kind of broker a peace deal with the cartels. And the cartels have actually acquiesced to this because they understand that part of the tourist industry within Mexico is vital to their survival. Because if there's no businesses to extort for protection money because there's no tourism, then their supply chain runs out too, and they can't invest in legitimate businesses and wash their money. The problem here is that Iran is the external influence damaging that economy. So you can't make peace with where the Mexican government can have sort of an understanding with the cartel that, listen, you can't attack tourist sites and you can't attack hotels and you can't kidnap Americans because that will be bad for business for everyone. With the Iranians involved in this, it's not up to the Saudis. So I think that external pressure might be a little much for their economy. And if this goes on much longer, I think you're going to see a lot of empty hotels there.
My God. I mean, the money shot, I think the one that will end everything was that big hotel that looks like a sail on the water. I don't know the name of the hotel, just being hit. That was, I mean, that image is gonna stay in everyone's heads forever.
The locals are saying you have nothing to worry about. What? What do you mean you have nothing to worry about? How do you know? There's literally missiles exploding above my apartment. There was a drone that went into a residential building. So for somebody to say you have nothing to worry about, they're completely delusional.
You're hearing missiles going off and loud bangs. Oh my God, it's a missile. Oh my God, that building just got murked.
These first-hand accounts on social media were the only reports of what's happening in Dubai. Then suddenly, they stopped. Local authorities making it clear. The public prosecution warns against publishing or circulating rumors, or they will be subject to legal accountability. And no one wants to be jailed in Dubai.
I mean, I took my post down, so yeah, I got a lot of messages when I put my post up saying it's probably best to take it down, so no comment.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm realizing as well? It's been years now since I've seen so many. I've been seeing all these videos about how safe it is in Dubai. Guys going, hey, look, there's my Audemars Piguet and rose gold. I'm going to leave it on the dash of my car. I'm going to go in and do some shopping. When I come back, it's going to be right here.
Yeah.
And I was always going, oh, wow, it's mad safe. I guess there's like heavy policing there. Nobody wants
It's
to fuck with the
heavy
cops.
monitoring, yeah.
But also I'm thinking, was this kind of propaganda? Is it really as safe as was this
So
whole safe haven thing a pretext to
it's very safe in terms of petty crime. So interpersonal violence and petty crime and property crime is incredibly low. They have that place wired for audio and video 24/7. And I actually worked with a guy who went to Dubai and went to the compound where they sort of monitor all these cameras. And it is like, the way he described it is going into an IMAX theater, but it is a wraparound screen of computers, and they're using artificial intelligence to detect certain things. And so the guy that I worked with said he got to see this happen live, where there was a car accident and like a cab driver hit another car. And they saw it on the footage and they immediately dispatched police and ambulance. And then the call came in. So this guy calls, their version of 911 and says, hey, I'm over here. I was just in a car accident. And they're like, yeah, we know. They're already on the way. So that's the level of monitoring that they do, because it's not a gigantic country. It's not the size of Texas or anything, or the United States. So they can do it. So it is safe in that sense. You're not likely to get mugged on the street or have your car stolen or your purse snatched.
Right.
But in terms of geopolitical safety, they're in a bad neighborhood. So at any time, something can happen between Israel, Iran. You still have, the threat of terrorism that's still ever present there. So it's not as safe as people believe from those types of threats, but it is relatively safe day to day for normal people.
Not now.
I should say, was relatively safe.
I don't know. I mean, listen, I know some people in Dubai, some great friends of the channel and so on. And, I was reaching out to them to make sure they were okay. But my fear is that the image of this haven, this wonderful paradise, utopian paradise, it has been shattered for, potential investors. There's all sorts of memes and so on across TikTok of, real estate developers on the phone trying to give away property at, pennies on the dollar now and so on. I'm sorry, but I just don't see them recovering.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
and
see
this
them
is
recovering
the
from this.
this is the asymmetry that I mentioned, and this is the insidious effect of actual terrorism. Terrorism is not. This is the weird thing that people tend to confuse. Groups like Al Qaeda, groups like ISIS, and even state sponsors of terrorism like Iran, they're
Mhm.
not looking to defeat America in a conventional war. They're not. Their plan is not to fly the flag of Iran over the White House. That is not their goal. Their goal is to destabilize and de-influence the world from our influence. So that what they want. This is why terrorism is effective. 9/11 was effective because we now we used to take our shoes off on the plane. Everybody knows what it's like to consider the possibility of a hijacking. When
Yes.
you get on a subway in New York, everybody considers the possibility of a bomb. When you get on a bus in Tel Aviv or a train in London, that is in the forefront of your mind. It makes you
Right.
question your safety. That
Mhm.
is the effect that terrorists want, and that is the goal of these types of organizations. So their asymmetric approach to combating us in a conventional sense is what makes them effective. They're not playing by the same rules. And that's why the conventional approach of, I think, what we're doing right now, which is just to get rid of, the core echelon of leadership and see what happens, so to speak, long term is not an effective strategy.
Philip Shah, the Sale Hotel. Sorry, that was the only way I could describe it. Burj Al Arab. Yeah, I believe the Burj Khalifa is the big, big, tall one. It's like the
Yeah.
tallest building in the world. Burj Al Arab. Sorry, I don't know the names of all these hotels. I just know that as a landmark. It's a very famous landmark in the area. Carlos Ramirez, question for John. Going to MXCD tomorrow. Should I wear a Lux watch or a Seiko?
What is MXCD?
I don't know.
I'm drawing a blank there.
I'm sorry. I don't know why people abbreviate things. Just type the whole sentence. Frank Pill Potts, Shades of Venezuela. Sorry, that was before. We had one come in from. We had one from Sean in Los Angeles.
Sean, good to see
both.
you.
John, do you think Iran is going to end up being fragmented with talk of Kurds coming in to the scene? They deny that, by the way.
Yeah,
But
they're denying it, but it's tough. I don't, again, this boat goes back to what I'm saying. What does winning look like? I think if you're trying to defeat Iran, that's not going to happen. You're not going to defeat the population. You're not going to defeat the Persian culture. I don't know what percentage of the Iranian people are actually Shia, devout Shia Muslims, as opposed to just kind of secular or just going along with the program out of safety. The same way, not everybody in the USSR was a hardened communist, but they were playing ball, so to speak. So that is the difficulty in diagnosing these things appropriately, because it's a kind of it's what we call a denied area. In my line of work, it's a denied area. It's not a place you can operate easily as an intelligence service or as a collection service. So it's tough to say what the true sentiment of people really is on the ground. How supportive are they? of overthrowing the regime. But then the second thing comes in is how supportive are they going to be of a American-backed or Israeli-backed regime if they do grant you the fact that they are sick of the theocracy. So
Well,
this is where
their
it gets
first move the
complicated.
other day was to blow up a school with 180 young kids, young girls in it. So
Yeah, and even that,
that's not a good way.
even that is being disputed in the West, because
Oh, I'm sure.
the counterpoint to that is that was an Iranian missile that went up and was, and then came back down on the school, and that was not the Israelis or the Americans. So
Right.
again, it's tough to know. And as the article ended with the Chinese proverb of "we'll see," I think that's probably the most intelligent thing I can end it on, because I genuinely don't know, and I don't think, what worries me is that the administration doesn't seem to know either, or at least have a plan that is coherent at this point that we can all kind of get behind.
Right. Guys, this is the Substack. This is John's Substack. I'm going to wrap up the show here because my kid she's here with me for the next few days.
And exactly the 2-hour mark.
Yeah. I'm trying to do that. It was good, intense show. Let's not drag it out too long. We covered all ground. There is the Substack, guys. Go over and give John a follow, and come and see me in maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes on iBashers with Dirk. John, thanks for your input, man, as always.
Anytime. Thank you as always. Thanks for everybody for listening. Oshin, always a pleasure, man. I love having these conversations, and I appreciate you bringing me on, and the shout outs and the encouragement and the artistic guidance as far as my writing amateur career.
Good. I enjoy it. I look forward to all your Substacks, man. Fantastic. And thanks for sharing your thoughts. Guys, I'll see you guys over on the iBashers in only a few minutes. I'm going to go check on my daughter here and come back to you guys over on the iBashers channel with Dirk Kennedy. And we'll continue the conversation. If you want to continue it as well, John, excuse me, over there, if you feel like if you have a bottle of wine or whatever.
Yep, I'm going to grab some dinner and I might pop over there. So shoot me the link.
Fantastic, man. We'll do.
All right, man. Thank you again. And congrats to your daughter again. That's awesome. I'm sure it's one thing to be proud of your own accomplishment, and it probably feels just as good to be proud of somebody you love accomplishing.
Oh my God. You've no idea. You've no idea. Take care, brother.
Good night.
Good night. All right. That's the show, guys. I'm going to go check on her, make sure everything's cool. She has to get up very early in the morning. And then I'm going to come back over onto Dirk's show, The iBashers. Just look for it, the iBashers channel with Dirk and myself. And we'll talk to the wee hours of the morning like we often do. Hope you enjoyed that. That was an intense one, but an informative one. It's a crazy world out there, guys. Sorry there was no watch chat. There is my Omega Seamaster and my Omega pin from the Olympics. Fantastic. Take it easy, guys. Peace, love. Ciao.